The years before Clara arrived at Hollow Creek had taught her one lesson over and over again. If you needed nothing, no one could take anything from you. That belief had kept her alive, had kept her standing when other people folded under disappointment. But it had also hollowed her out in quiet ways. On the bus ride to the ranch, she remembered staring out the window at miles of open land, wondering why she felt more afraid of wide spaces than crowded ones. Wide spaces meant possibility. Possibility meant risk. Hollow Creek itself felt like a place that remembered things. The fence posts bore scars from decades of weather. The barn doors creaked with familiarity, not weakness. Even the ground felt steady, like it knew exactly what it was meant to hold. Clara noticed all of it. She always noticed details. It was another survival skill. Ethan noticed her noticing, and though he didn't comment, something about her attentiveness struck him as reverence rather than curiosity. Their days settled into a rhythm shaped by sun and responsibility. Clara woke early, often before the others, savoring the quiet moment when the world hadn't asked anything of her yet. She liked the honesty of physical labor. Animals didn't pretend. Land didn't lie. If you cared for it, it gave back what it could. If you neglected it, it showed you the cost. That logic made sense to her in a way people never quite had. Ethan admired her work ethic, but respected her distance. After Margaret died, well-meaning people had tried to pull him back into life with noise and advice. He learned to appreciate silence, to recognize when someone needed space more than words. Clara and Ethan communicated often without speaking. A nod, a shared glance at the sky, a quiet understanding when a day went wrong and there was nothing to fix but time. Yet under that calm surface, something was shifting. Clara found herself listening for Ethan's footsteps without meaning to. She noticed when he hadn't slept well. She caught herself wanting to tell him things she'd never told anyone. That scared her more than loneliness ever had. At night, lying in her narrow bunkhouse bed, she stared at the ceiling and wondered when safety had started to feel like danger. Ethan felt it too, though he named it differently. He felt awake again. Not happy exactly, but present. Clara brought a kind of groundedness into his days, a sense that life wasn't over simply because loss had happened. Still, guilt crept in. Loving again felt like betraying Margaret's memory. He told himself he was just being kind to a worker who needed stability. He told himself many things that weren't quite true. When Clara hurt her ankle, the fragile balance between them shifted. Watching her wince, watching fear flash across her face when she realized she couldn't stand on her own, stirred something protective in Ethan he hadn't felt in years. Carrying her back to the house felt natural, necessary. For Clara, it felt like standing on a ledge with no railings. Being dependent triggered old memories of disappointment. She fought it, even as she accepted it. Living in the main house unsettled her in unexpected ways. The walls weren't cold or imposing. They were lived in, full of quiet echoes. She found herself pausing in doorways, imagining laughter, shared meals, ordinary moments she'd never had. It made her chest ache. Ethan never pushed her into those spaces. He let her choose where to sit, where to be. That patience both comforted and confused her. As her ankle healed, her fear grew. The closer she felt to Ethan, the more certain she became that leaving was inevitable. People didn't stay. They couldn't. So she tried to create distance before it was forced on her. When she announced her plan to leave, she expected resistance. Ethan's calm acceptance felt like abandonment all over again, even though she was the one pulling away. The storm night cracked something open she couldn't seal again. The darkness stripped away her defenses. Her confession spilled out because she was tired of carrying it on. When Ethan answered her fear with commitment instead of pressure, something inside her shifted. Not healed, shifted. The idea that someone might choose her daily without conditions was almost unbearable in its tenderness. Still, Clara didn't trust it. Trust had to be learned slowly, like a language she'd never spoken. She stayed, then left, testing the edges of what Ethan offered. When she took a job in a nearby town, convincing herself she needed independence, Ethan let her go. He didn't chase her. He didn't guilt her. He just told her she had a place if she ever wanted to come back. That freedom undid her more than any demand could have. In town, life felt louder, harsher. She realized how much peace the ranch had given her, how much Ethan's steady presence had become part of her breathing. The nights felt colder, beds felt emptier. For the first time, she didn't want to run from that feeling. She wanted to understand it. When she returned to Hollow Creek, unsure and braced for disappointment, Ethan welcomed her as if she'd never left. No questions, no resentment. Just coffee waiting on the table and work waiting in the fields. That consistency began to rewrite something deep in Clara. Maybe forever wasn't a trap. Maybe it was an agreement made slowly, with room for fear. The ranch's troubles forced them even closer. Drought burned the land, cattle prices tar, and repairs piled up. Ethan faced choices that would determine whether Hollow Creek survived. Clara stepped in naturally, helping manage accounts, suggesting changes, standing beside him during long, difficult days. She wasn't saving him, she was partnering with him. The distinction mattered. At night, they talked more openly, about fear, about regret, about the lives they had imagined and the ones they were living instead. Clara admitted she was afraid of losing herself. Ethan admitted he was afraid of losing again. They learned that love didn't require erasing those fears. It required carrying them together. When Ethan asked her to marry him, Clara didn't feel trapped. She felt seen. The word forever didn't feel like a sentence. It felt like a horizon, wide, uncertain, and beautiful. Their wedding was
beside Ethan that night without fear for the first time in her life. Years passed, and survived, and changed, grew, adapted. So did Kay. Claire still eat his face sometimes. They still carry Grace.